for being with us. We're talking some San Francisco 49ers. We're less than a week out from the start of the season, and somehow, some way, the Niners have yet to name a starting quarterback. Kyle Shanahan doing things a little differently out there in San Fran. Said, quote, "I don't need to announce who the starting quarterback is. I bet you can figure it out." And so we did. We stayed up all night. We crunched the numbers, all of us, and we figured it out. Brandon, how long can Jimmy G hold off Trey Lance as the starter?
Jimmy G will hold Trey Lance off as a starter until he gets injured. And history says that Jimmy G, he struggles to play 16 games. And if that happens and Trey Lance get that 3 or 4 game window where he can come in and light it up, until then, Jimmy G will be the starter. Trey Lance wasn't that much better than Jimmy G if he was better in the preseason to go ahead and make that jump. And as we've seen Kyle Shanahan in the past, he loves having 2 quarterbacks, you know, just for an insurance policy. If you remember back in Washington, he had RG3, and he also drafted Kirk Cousins in the same draft class. So at the quarterback position, he loves having an insurance policy just in case he might need to go to that guy. And I like what he did in the preseason. He's a genius. When defensive coordinators and defensive teams in the NFL prepare for you weekly, we get a whole playbook on how to stop this one quarterback and this one offense. With him sprinkling in Trey Lance, now defensive coordinators and defenses, they have 2 whole playbooks that they have to prepare for, not knowing how deep in any of them that they have to go to stop this 49ers offense, which keeps defensive coordinators and defenses up at night. So Jimmy G will be the starter. He will be the starter until he gets hurt, and that's when it gets passed over to Trey Lance, if Trey Lance likes it.
All right, so Jimmy G has gotten hurt a few times, but everyone talks about Jimmy G like he's Mr. Glass out there. He had some bad luck trying to pick up a few extra yards a handful of times. So there's no guarantee that Jimmy G is going to be hurt. In fact, when he's healthy, you know how far they could go, Nick? They can go all the way to the Super Bowl. And I know everybody wants to say, but when he only handed the ball off, he wasn't really throwing the ball. Jimmy G was winning games. We know that Kittle loves Jimmy G, wants Jimmy G as their quarterback. But I want to dig in. That's something that you said about 2 weeks ago, because I think Trey Lance is obviously the quarterback of the future, right? Nobody doubts that. They gave up too much draft capital to get him. I think Jimmy G should keep the job for as long as possible, and you can go to the Super Bowl with him because you literally did. And I think it should be akin to Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, but you're like, you know what? People have got it wrong. Patrick Mahomes should have come in earlier. Do you see that scenario playing out in San Francisco?
Yeah, I don't think they should have to wait for the injury. That isn't quite inevitable, but I think you're underselling. He started 2 games for the Patriots and got hurt in the second one. He then started the very end of the season for San Francisco, was fine. The next year, early on against the Chiefs, got hurt. The next year was healthy. And then last year got the ankle injury and missed a bulk of the season. So the guy's been hurt a lot for a limited sample size of starts in his career. But let's assume he's healthy. I don't think you should have to have an injury to go with Trey if Trey is showing you enough in practice and his snaps in the games. And you're right, Wilds, that I said the thing that people have wrong about the Chiefs is the missed opportunity of Mahomes' rookie year. Everyone remembers Mahomes' first year starting. 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, league MVP, takes him to the AFC Championship game. Nobody, and everyone's like, oh my God, it was perfect. He had all that growth as a rookie, and then he gets that level. How much better do people think Patrick Mahomes got from January of 2018 to September of 2018? I'm sure he got better, but how much better? Because if he was 75% of the guy that he was in year 2, by the midpoint of year 1, they should have played him. And my Chiefs maybe could have won the damn Super Bowl. Certainly could have beaten the Titans at home. Marcus Mariota came into Arrowhead and won a playoff game. He started like 6 more games after that in his whole career. They're like, it's Marcus Mariota. But they went with the safe choice. They're like, Alex Smith's been here. He's the veteran. And by the way, the same thing that you're saying about Jimmy G, I could have said about Alex Smith. Well, he can take you to an NFC Championship game. You know how I know? I saw it. Did it in San Francisco. I've seen it. But everyone knew there was a ceiling there. So if Trey Lance is showing Brandon a grasp of the offense, if he is showing growth throughout the season in practice and in real games, we can throw the schedule up real quick. I think there is a spot in the season where even if Jimmy G's healthy, I think could make sense. If you look at the Niners schedule, about 2/3 of the way through, or right halfway through the season, that Rams game, if they play the Rams and they lose, and then you have the Jags, Vikings, Seahawks, Bengals, Falcons, Titans, Texans over the next 6-7 weeks. What do all those teams have in common? None of them have a great defense. 4 of them have a terrible defense. I think that would be a spot where you might say, you know what? Let's go to Trey Lance to get him prepared for what could be a playoff run and for the Week 18 game against the Rams, which the division could come down to that game. So I don't know if it should have to take a Jimmy G injury, Brandon.
Nick, you make so many valid points right there. Well, one thing I don't agree with when you're comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes could have played as a rookie strictly because he's so pinpoint accurate. This is one of the most accurate passes that might ever play the game. And all you have to do with an accurate quarterback is, can you grasp the playbook and can you get the line sliding the right way when you need to? So it's not that hard. Trey Lance is not that accurate. Is he a playmaker? Yes. Can he beat you with his legs and his arm? Yes. But this isn't a guy that you can just put ahead of Jimmy G. Brian Flores, even though he's a great coach, he's struggling with that now in Miami, because if you go to Trey Lance in San Francisco and he doesn't get it and you got to go back to Jimmy G, it can kill his confidence. NFL players, what separates those guys is confidence. Everybody can play. And now you've seen when Brian Flores went from Tua to Ryan Fitzpatrick in the fourth quarter, it kind of killed Tua's confidence. And now I'm not sure if Brian Flores likes what he sees in Tua right now, even though Ryan Fitzpatrick left the building down in Miami. That's why you're hearing this smoke about Deshaun Watson might be able to come in. So I think Brian Flores played with Tua confidence right there, and that's the last thing you want to do with Trey Lance. So I wouldn't make that switch unless I necessarily see it on film, and I have to make that switch.
And there's another way for Trey Lance to get in as the full-time starter. And Wilds, I want your thoughts on this because you're higher on Jimmy G than most. And that is, let's say, for instance, Washington's defense is as good as everyone believes it's going to be, and their offense is as bad as I believe it's going to be. And that the Cowboys don't run away and hide with the division. The Giants are bad. The Eagles are mediocre. And through 6 weeks, Washington's like, you know what? If we can just get adequate quarterback play, we can win this division, go back to the playoffs. If the Niners are winning, but if Jimmy G hasn't shown massive growth, would you, as a resident Jimmy G fan, be willing to trade him? Because I think that's the other element here. Is that, see, you wouldn't, I think the Niners would. I think the Niners look at it as they know they got to make up these draft picks somehow. 3 first-rounders for Trey Lance is a bill that's going to continually come due. And the best way to recoup that is the inevitable Jimmy Garoppolo trade. Most people think it's happening after the season. But if there's a quarterback injury for a playoff team, or Washington's the team with a great defense and no quarterback, like that, I could see that trade potentially happening during the year. If Trey Lance is showing growth, Wilds, that's something I believe John Lynch will look at, will seriously consider if that presents itself as available.
Okay, so Trey Lance, who we know is going to run the ball, and we know already has like a chipped finger. What if Trey Lance gets injured? Yeah. I don't want to speak it into existence. And then who do you have? They just got rid of Josh Rosen, who oddly I'm all of a sudden high on Josh Rosen. But Brandon, for me, I could say I would never have too many quarterbacks. I like what the Eagles are doing. I like what the Bears are doing. Like, not only do we have a backup quarterback, our third-string quarterback is also ready to go in. So if the Niners were winning, I would want Jimmy G as sort of that ultimate Nick Folesian backup if they make a playoff run and something were to happen to Trey Lance. I would not move him during the year.
I definitely wouldn't move him during the year. And like you said, you never can have too many quarterbacks on your roster. Whether somebody get injured, somebody go in a slump, but I just don't like juggling quarterbacks. You have one here, he's not playing well, let's go to the other. I think you just let Jimmy G ride out. And if you want to trade him when the season is over with, you can trade him. Jimmy G, when he's a starter and he's healthy, he's going to play well. It's proven. So you just let him play this year. Let Trey Lance, you can have him sprinkle him in 15 plays, let him get his feet wet. And you can kind of sit him for this year. It's no rush. Kyle Shanahan, he's not on a hot seat, so you have time to let your quarterback into Jimmy G. Just go ahead and just play 16 games and see where he can take you again.
Well, Brandon, you said it when he's healthy. By the way, can I just say, kind of love a sun-splashed Kevin Wildes on a Friday morning.
Oh, thank you.
I'm kind of loving it.
Oh, it looks great.
Makes me feel, summery, if you will, even though we're saying goodbye to the season. Talk some basketball. What does the future hold for Ben Simmons?